And a very good morning, UTRGV. This is your host Ali. Welcome to another edition of All In with Ali, live from our Edinburgh studio. It's very nice out today, 75 degrees, top of the hour here in Edinburgh. Biggest story that I wanted to talk about as soon as this show opened was about what happened on Sunday. And if you saw the game, you know exactly what I'm talking about. How about them Dallas Cowboys? Huh? Oh my, that was a very much not fun game to watch if you were a Cowboys fan. The Lions put BTA. I can't spell out that meaning because these are FCC airwaves after all. 47-9 was the final score. I mean, the Lions are just doing whatever the hell they wanted on that field. It got to a point where they were running routes with their offensive linemen. It was that much of a massacre. And I mean, last year the Cowboys ended up besting the Lions. I mean, the Lions ended up getting screwed by the refs because I thought he was definitely an eligible receiver, but the refs didn't see it that way. They got called for it, and I think this game had been circled on Dan Campbell's calendar ever since that happened, and he set out the way that he went about it. He set out to embarrass the Cowboys. I mean, if it was already a 20-point game in the fourth quarter, he could have rested his starters, but no, he kept them out there because he wanted to make a damn point, and he made it. I mean, as for issues, what does this spell for the Cowboys going forward? I mean, total lack of offense. I mean, they just could not get anything going. Dak was getting beat up behind that line. The Cowboys just could not run the ball well. I mean, that was the biggest issue the Cowboys needed to address this offseason, and they didn't. Their running back room consists of an aging Zeke Elliott and Rico Dowdle. That's it. That's their running back room right now. They could have had they had a chance to sign Derrick Henry in the offseason. They didn't. I didn't think they even reached out to his agent to negotiate a deal. Instead, he ended up going to the Ravens, and he's, doing Derrick Henry things over there. Meanwhile, Dallas got left behind in the dust. CeeDee Lamb, apart from that first drive, did not look good. And then the defense, I know it's been battered by injuries all year, but still, to allow the Lions to come in and drop 47 on your home turf is just it just wasn't a great effort on defense. And I mean, Colin Cowherd said it best the other day when talking about Dak Prescott, because he got paid a lot of money to pull that performance that he did. He said, this sort of it's not exactly the quote, but he said, Dak got the bag and Cowboys fans were left holding it. And I think that was the perfect metaphor to describe the Cowboys season and the perfect metaphor to describe how that game went. And then I think this all has to fall on Jerry Jones, man. I mean, not only to watch the Lions massacre the Cowboys on his birthday, but then to go out and threaten to fire radio hosts who are asking the questions that Cowboys fans that many in the media are going to ask of Jerry Jones and how he structured the team. I mean, these are tough questions that any GM would have to face following a tough loss like that. And to not only go act all defensive, but to threaten to fire the radio host that asked the question is absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous and unprofessional. And I mean, instead of answering the question that fans want answered, he goes after the hosts. I mean, that is just a testament to the lack of accountability that we've seen in the Dallas Cowboys organization. Jerry Jones bought the team. They got big in the 90s and haven't done anything since. I don't think this is that. They'd be lucky if they made the playoffs this year. I'm saying this now. They'd be lucky to make the playoffs with the way they've been playing. They have been getting massacred at home, and they've been playing okay on the road, but but their upcoming matches, I mean, they've got some tough opponents on their schedule coming off the bye after this week. They play the 49ers, the Texans, the Eagles. I mean, these are teams that you expect to be able to beat if you want to win a Super Bowl. These are at least finishing competitive games with. And then your last game before the bye week in a tough opponent against the Lions to then get massacred like that. It was in my mind, that gives me serious doubts as to the viability of this team going forward. And then, well, that's about it for the Cowboys bit. Well, let's recap the rest of Week 6. A lot went down. Let's start with the AFC East. I mean, a lot going on between the Bills and the Jets. First of all, they played each other Monday night. And Monday night, I mean, that looked like the Bills game all the way. And that, I mean, they did keep it sort of close, but you could tell that it was a bit of a struggle for the Jets to pull through there, especially after they had just fired their head coach. So it's a little shaky. So literally the night after that game, after they lose to the Bills, they go out and trade for Davante Adams. Yes, that's right. Davante Adams is now a New York Jet. He rejoins Aaron Rodgers, who he had a past relationship with all those years down in Green Bay, and he's going to continue to see more targets in that regard. So and then right afterwards, not too long after, Amari Cooper goes to the Bills to strengthen their wide receiver room. I mean, the Bills' wide receiver room had been okay going in, but you could tell that they needed a true number one, and they had that in Stephon Diggs. He left, he went to Houston, and now they went out, got another true number one. Amari Cooper is finally free from the Browns, and now he's going where he gets a legitimate quarterback in Josh Allen. And to me, what does this spell for the rest of the division? I mean, it tells me the Dolphins are on thin ice right now. I mean, they have one more week before Tua comes back. They play a not-so-great opponent in the Indianapolis Colts. And this really does feel, it gives a bit of an added pressure to make it a must-win game if you're the Dolphins, because you essentially, if the Dolphins win this game, you got Tua coming back next week and all your weapons nice and healthy. But if you lose next week, it's going to make it that much more tougher to stay competitive in this division because the Patriots weren't the best team, but they have a quarterback starting to break out over there in Drake May. And then to add to all of that, the Jets and the Bills both loaded up at a position that they needed help in. That to me says that the Dolphins have to get their you know what together, and they have to get it together fast, because otherwise it's gonna make it real difficult if they don't win this game against the Colts. Continuing on to recapping Week 6, Texans and Patriots. I mean, Texans offense showing up and showing out, down without Nico Collins. They showed up. They dropped, I think it was 41 points on the New England Patriots. And the Texans offense looked good. Joe Mixon is back and healthy and running the ball. He looks like the number one. He looks like a true RB1 in that team. He ran the ball really well, I thought. And then Tank Dell had a great day. Stephon Diggs had a great day. And that offense is going to continue to be a threat. And I think the Texans are, I think, a top 5 team in the NFL right now. They got an interesting match next week against the Packers. So that'll really determine more or less if they are pretenders or contenders. And then, of course, on the other side, you have the Patriots, who lost by about 20, but they had a breakout. I mean, that was the NFL debut of Drake May. I mean, he didn't do too bad of a job going in as a rookie quarterback against a tough defense like Houston has. So I think it's important, if you want to watch for Drake May's development, to see how the next couple of weeks are going to go out for him. Another game, let's talk about it. Browns versus Eagles. And this was a game that should not have been as close as the final score said it was. I mean, it was 20-16. Browns are not a great team, but if you're a team with Super Bowl aspirations like the Philadelphia Eagles, you should probably be winning by at least a touchdown and a field goal, not a 2016 game that came down to the line against a terrible team. This is as close to a bad win as you could expect from the Eagles. And then to top it all off, what the hell was Nick Sirianni doing chirping at the fans after the game? I mean, come on, man. That was some seriously unprofessional stuff from Sirianni. And you got to wonder, even with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith coming back healthy, you got to wonder if maybe Sirianni's in the hot seat right now. What to watch for in Week 7? We got a Super Bowl rematch coming up on Sunday. 49ers against the Chiefs. That should be a great showing at Arrowhead Stadium. That game, I believe, is at 3 o'clock. Texans and Packers, like I mentioned before. Texans looking to establish themselves. They're 5-1. Packers looking to climb their way back to the top of the NFC North. And speaking of the NFC North, we got a clash of the Titans in that division. Lions and Vikings, both the Texans, Packers, and Lions, Vikings, both of those games will take place at the 12 o'clock slot on Sunday. Stick around. We'll talk a little bit of college football after these messages. Don't touch that dial. This is Vaquero Radio, the Valley's student station. And that's No Role Models by J. Cole to close out the music segment. Welcome back to All In with Ali. Let's talk some of the action in college football last week. Second Saturday was this last week, the Red River Showdown between UT and Oklahoma, and UT put BTA to OU 34-3 in that game. What does this mean for UT? Well, this means could Texas potentially be back? I don't know. I would say their biggest test isn't Oklahoma or even A&M. They're one of their biggest tests on the calendar is next week against a number 5 ranked Georgia team. But don't get me wrong, the Longhorns have looked pretty good this year. They have. But we still, I don't know, past experience has shown us we gotta see if they can beat the best, because you gotta beat the best to be the best, you know? But that game was not even a contest. It was BTA. It was an absolute beatdown. Then another one, Bama barely beating out South Carolina this week. And I mean, back-to-back bad weeks for Alabama. I mean, I know they came out with the win, but they almost ended up losing this game. It was not as close as it should have been. I mean, this is not the same Alabama team that I grew up watching. This is not, the Nick Saban era is over. This is not the same program that many of us grew up despising because they kept winning the thing every year. So this does potentially spell danger for Alabama going forward. Now there's some games that I'd like to watch going into next week. Number 5 Georgia travels to DKR to take on number 1 ranked Texas. That will be a great showdown. I mean, Bama and Georgia gave us a show the last time they went. We'll see if we get the same kind of shootout between these two incredible SEC teams that we saw back in Tuscaloosa not only a couple weeks ago. Number 7 Alabama travels to number 11 ranked Tennessee, and then 24 Michigan goes to ranked 22 Illinois in a non-SEC showdown between two ranked teams ranked towards the bottom half of the AP poll. Still two of the greatest teams in this country at the moment. Stick around. We'll talk NBA. We'll talk a little bit of NHL in this next segment of All In with Ali. Don't touch that dial. We'll be back after this break. Jimmy at World's the Middle to close the music segment. Welcome back to All In with Ali. Apologies earlier for the indecent language in the first segment of the show, but we'd like to move over to the NBA, where the preseason is wrapping up, And the biggest story so far this preseason, one of the biggest stories this far that I like to talk about, Lonzo Ball returning after sitting out a couple years due to injury. Glad to see him back in action. Hopefully things go well for him. Season will start on Tuesday in the NBA. Knicks and Celtics and Timberwolves and Lakers will be the first two teams on the schedule for this season. San Antonio Spurs don't play till Thursday. They will take on the Mavericks on the road in Dallas. NHL action to continue this segment. Panthers Jackets with a very fitting tribute to Johnny Gaudreau at the start of the game. We losing one of the greatest players probably the best player on the Jackets and a captain and a leader. And it's an incredible way to pay tribute to him at the start of the game. Starting off the season, who's hot? It's your typical suspects in the East, the New Jersey Devils, the Toronto Leafs, and the reigning champion Florida Panthers starting off hot. And then we go over to the West, Stars, Jets, Flames, and Knights, your usual suspects. Dallas looking to finally make it again to the Stanley Cup final after they made it in 2020 but haven't been back since, yet haven't won a cup since the 90s there. Utah Hockey making their debut too. It's odd seeing a team. We saw a similar situation with Washington after they changed their name, but they didn't change their city. They said which would become the Commanders. Utah Hockey makes their debut, but without a team name after moving from Arizona, previously being the Coyotes. Who knows? We might also see expansion. Some other teams or some other cities are vying for expansion teams. One of those being Houston, which we thought the Yotes were going to move to Houston, but they never did. They went to Utah instead. Well, we'll continue the discussion. We'll talk some postseason action in baseball after this. Plus, on this day in sports history, we'll be back with All In with Ollie after these messages. Aerials by System of a Down to close out that music break. Welcome back to All In with Ollie. Let's talk about the playoffs. Major League Baseball playoffs in full swing. We are down, and then there were four. We are now in the championship series phase of the playoffs. 4 teams left. 2 teams will earn a pennant and a spot in the World Series. Who's up first? The New York Yankees. Right now, they hold a 2-0 lead over the Cleveland Guardians. Both games have been 3-run games, 5-2 and 6-3 in New York, and the series shifts to Progressive Field in Cleveland. So yeah, the Yankees, clearly have looked like the better team in these 2 sets, but some base running errors by the Yankees in Game 2, and something that you don't really want to see if you're a fan of the Yankees and you're watching the team. Two base running errors in 1 inning. That was interesting to see, but Aaron Judge finally breaking out, hit his first home run of the postseason. Juan Soto looking like a star that the Yankees were promised. He's a free agent at the end of the year, so what happens to Juan Soto at the end of the year, who knows? There's a lot of inclination he might want to stay in the Bronx, but who knows? All we know is that Game 3 tonight in Cleveland, the Yankees will be sending Clark Schmidt to the mound. The Cleveland Guardians will be sending left-hander Matthew Boyd. Now on to the National League, where after last night's blowout in Citi Field, the Dodgers lead the Mets 2-1. None of these games have been particularly close. We have 2 shutouts and a 7-3 game. Top of the order it's an interesting graphic put up by Fox Sports in this game. Top of the order has really set the tone for both offenses. When the top of the Dodgers order was shut down in Game 2, the top of the Mets order succeeded. Lindor hitting the home run, and then Vientos hitting the grand slam that more or less sealed the deal. And then you look at games 1 and 3, where top of the Dodgers order has been productive, then the rest of the team has been able to score runs. So it's really on who's top of the order is gonna succeed. That's what's been the determining factor in the success of the rest of the offense. And it really does start at the top. I mean, Shohei Ohtani he's been great with runners on base, but without any runners on, he hasn't had much in terms of production. But regardless, hit a huge towering home run last night in Citi Field that more or less sealed the deal. I mean, that thing, I don't know if it's landed yet. It probably landed somewhere in LaGuardia Airport. But tonight, doesn't matter. Mets with the chance to tie the series, or the Dodgers with a chance to take a commanding 3-1 series lead. That game takes place tonight. The Dodgers will be sending Yoshinobu Yamamoto to the mound. The Mets will be sending Jose Quintana. Other big story in the MLB, Tropicana Field will not be ready after sustaining huge damage and a torn roof after Hurricane Milton. Tropicana Field will not be ready for opening day at the start of the 2025 season. As of right now, it's been reported that the Tampa Bay Rays are looking for other options, including in and out of the Tampa area, possibly playing at a spring training site or a minor league ballpark in the area. There's also been talk of other cities like temporarily hosting the A's that want an expansion team. Cities like Charlotte, Nashville, maybe even Montreal have been discussed as potential sites. But if you were to ask me, there's a city that recently just lost their major league team that's been very passionate in their support for that major league team. That's Oakland, California. Who knows? I don't ever see that happening, that Oakland hosting the Rays for a temporary bit. But who knows what's going to happen in that situation. And in all likelihood, this will probably be the last time we'll ever see the Trop. We already saw the last of the Trop because the Rays already have a plan for a new stadium to be built on the same site. So there's really no point in spending millions of dollars on a new roof for Tropicana Field when you're already going to drop about $1 billion on a new stadium and surrounding developments in St. Pete. Speaking of natural disasters that affect Major League Baseball, we'll go on now to On This Day in sports history. On this day in 1989, a 6.9 magnitude earthquake struck the city of San Francisco ahead of Game 3 of the 1989 World Series between the Athletics and the Giants. It was a battle of the Bay, and almost all the Bay Area had been tuned in, and they got out of work early to watch this game, and that really was credited with saving lives because so many people were at home watching the game instead of out on the roads when the freeways collapsed during the earthquake. That resulted in the the earthquake struck right as the pregame segment was wrapping up, right ahead of first pitch. That game, of course, got canceled. The World Series later moved on a couple of days later. The Oakland Athletics would end up sweeping the San Francisco Giants in 4 games in that series. In 2012, the doping scandal surrounding Lance Armstrong broke, and as a result, he was stripped of many sponsorships and titles that he had allegedly won during his racing career, but it had been found that he was on performance-enhancing substances for a bit of it, so he would end up losing sponsorships and titles as a result. And on this day in 2015, Cristiano Ronaldo becomes Real Madrid's all-time leading goal scorer. He passed club legend Raul, scoring his 324th goal in a 3-0 win against Levante. Of course, Ronaldo would go on win many trophies with Real Madrid and would solidify himself as one of, if not the greatest player in club history over there. Another achievement for another Real striker, 2022 on this day, Karim Benzema wins the Ballon d'Or. Tonight's going to be an interesting night in terms of sports. We got a lot of action today. We got both league championship series going on at the same time. Preseason in the NBA is starting up. Right now, the NHL is already in full swing. NBA, unfortunately, won't start till next week, but we can't wait for that. League Championship Series, Yankees, Guardians, Mets, Dodgers tonight. And as well, Thursday night football. So it's going to be a packed slate today. The Denver Broncos, Sean Payton and the Broncos will go on to New Orleans to face the Saints. Sean Payton going back against his former team that he coached for many years. He won a ring with the Drew Brees era Saints, won a ring over there. Also, that would be something. It's going to be a greatly packed segment in sports tonight. Well, that's about all I've got time for today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this week and All In with Ali. We'll tune in next week. We're going to be talking a lot next week. We got a wrap up of the championship series. Maybe we'll have a World Series decided by that point. I certainly hope so. I'm thinking the Mets and Dodgers go to 6-7 games. Who knows about New York and Cleveland? But what we know for certain is that there's a lot of baseball ahead, and as they say, it ain't over till it's over. So we'll have the recap of the championship series. We'll have a recap of Week 7. That plus more stories in the wide world of sports. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Spread the word out on All In with Ali. And don't forget to tune in to the other great programs we have here on Vaquero Radio. Office hours at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. That starring Vaquero Radio's very own Dr. V. Also don't forget to tune in to the newscast Monday and Wednesday at 11 a.m. on Vaquero Radio. That plus so many more great programs. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Have a great rest of your day, UTRGV. Stay warm.